Ons is reg, voorsitter. Ek dink ons meneer Polse, is jy daar? Albert?
Yeah, I am here.
Okay.
Goeiemôre, collega Maran.
Morning, voorzitter. Môre almal teenwoordig.
Okay, Ann, are we ready? So, meneer Polse daar.
Ons is reg, Shiraz, is julle reg?
Okay. So we will then commence. Okay, Johan, we'll start.
Yes,
Okay.
sir, that's correct.
Fine. Thank you so much. Good morning, colleagues. Today is Tuesday, the 19th of May, 2020. It's a virtual meeting via MS Teams of the Standing Committee on Local Government. Welcome all present, particularly our members that will indicate who are the committee's members are present today, the HUD of the department and all officials. May I have an indication of the members present, please? Can the members who are present just indicate their presence?
Member Smith
Chair.
present.
Thank you.
Member Maseko present.
Thank you.
Alternate member Maran present.
Any other members?
Honorable van der Westhuizen is present.
Honorable van der Westhuizen isn't present. Any other members present? Thank you, colleagues. As we progress, I will call upon the leader of the department's delegation to introduce the officials present, and we will do that on a need basis, I suppose. We're not going to have all the members necessarily speaking at this particular meeting. Now, colleagues, this is a virtual meeting, and the virtual meeting require certain rules of engagement. We are using MS Teams, and the meeting will be broadcast via live feed on YouTube, which any interested persons or institutions or stakeholders out there may tune into and follow the proceedings of this meeting. Guests on MS Teams platform, except those who are presenting in terms of the meeting agenda, are not allowed to interact, participate verbally, without being requested to do so by the chairperson. We have technical assistance provided by our ICT department and staff. It's available to all members and guests. And if you need assistance during the course of the meeting, you can use the chat function and indicate the assistance required. At the start of the meeting, all members will be muted, and as we engage with each other, and when it's your turn to speak or whatever, you will then unmute yourself. And the reason why we're doing so is to eliminate all possible background noises that may interfere in the smooth running of our meeting. Members will notice that we have a new feature on Microsoft Teams that have not been available to us in the past, and that's an open hand. And that indicates that if a member wishes to raise a point of order, they can use that function and alert the chairperson of such a need. Members are to flag the chairperson's attention if they wish to speak and to raise a question by using the MS Teams chat function. All videos and audio must be switched off to improve the quality of the connection. However, if a member or official speaking and wish to switch on the video function, they may do so. Once participants are finished speaking, colleagues, I would request that we switch off our mics and in order to improve the audio quality and make it easier for members to follow the meeting procedure. So, colleagues, having said all of these things, I must conclude that unfortunately, due to the limited functionality of our platform, unfortunately, we will not have interpreting services available to us, and I would request members to be sensitive to the language needs of our participants, and if we all could use the medium of English as a means of communication, it will be highly appreciated. So with that, it's a mouthful, colleagues. We will then commence with the agenda items. But before we do so, I will ask the procedural officer, which is present, and that is Mr. Johan Coetzee, to give an indication whether we are curated before we start with the agenda. Johan?
Voorsitter, dit is korrek. Ons gaan voortgaan met die vergadering.
Yeah, colleagues, just one last thing. Can we, as a matter of courtesy to the rest of the meeting, our participants, reduce our own video connections as fast as possible, so that we could relieve and alleviate the pressure on the system. Right. So the agenda require us, point number 1 is to have a briefing on the performance, the fourth quarterly performance of the department. Can I have an indication whether Mr. Paulson, the HOD, is online?
Morning.
Morning, Mr. Paulson. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Yourself?
Well, thank you, sir. Okay, so I hand over to you. You decide as to how you are going to deal with your portion of the agenda, whether you're going to manipulate the presentation yourself from your side or whether you need assistance from our side to do so. It's all up to you. So I leave it up to you.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Once again, good morning to you and to the honorable members and to my colleagues and those listening in. Good morning from my side. We've got also the entire team with us. So some of them are actually has logged on this meeting with their own computers in their own offices. And I've got some of the guys with me in the boardroom sitting on the 8th floor in Waldorf building. Chairperson and members, honorable members, just by way of introduction. So the Standing Committee has asked for a briefing on the fourth quarter performance of the department. What we've done is we've given you perhaps some of the targets, those achieved and underachieved since the second quarter. So we've dealt with the second quarter, third quarter, and the fourth quarter. And in the last column, we've given you what the preliminary outputs are, annual outputs for the entire year. Those preliminary annual outputs, Chairperson and honorable members, are just indicative at this point in time, Within the department, we are busy with a validation process within the department to check the numbers and to verify. We are required by the end of July to submit the annual report to the Auditor General, and so we are doing that work in the interim. And as I say, those figures are preliminary and must be validated within the department. All the evidence must be provided and sought. And then by September, the department is then required to submit the final annual report for audit and verification and validation and so on. So that is the approach that we took, also to give the Standing Committee an idea of some of the overachievements and underachievements. And I'll ask Honourable Chairperson Albert just to go through the presentation. And we are directed by you as to how you want to do it, but we'll just, and I think the documentation has been distributed, so we'll go through this, and then the rest of the colleagues, all the chief directors and the directors are present, also to respond to any questions in the event that the Standing Committee members have any questions. If that's okay with your Chairperson, then we can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Paulser. I think that, thank you, we have received the presentations and the supporting documentation well in advance. And I think that the members may have acquainted themselves with the content thereof. And I think it's one of the documents that's 54 pages. It's a fairly lengthy one, so I'm sure we will not go through all 54 pages. And maybe we could just have a condensed sort of presentation, and then we can open the floor for further questioning and interrogation by the members. Thank you. So what the buffs are. Okay. All systems. Mr. Paulser, are you there? I see you. You're not audible.
Yeah, let me just unmute myself. So what we want to do is we just quickly want to run through this presentation. It's an abbreviated version. We're not going to focus on each line, and maybe just where there's discrepancies in the numbers, we will just highlight that and most probably provide some of the reasoning behind it, if they're okay with that, Chairperson.
Mr. Paulser, I think that presentation is not very long. Yeah, so yeah, we can simply just go through it, as it was presented to us. So I think that it will be appreciated if we go through each and every category and just give a brief explanation. Thank you.
Thanks, thanks, Chairperson. We will do that.
Okay, Mr. Duenga, are you doing the presentation?
Good morning, honorable members. Yes, I will be doing it, Chair. Let me just share the presentation.
Who's clicking like it?
Can I be please given an access to upload?
No, it's just here. You upload here. Albert here. Okay. Chairperson.
Yes, sir.
You just want to upload the presentation, but I think Mr. Johan Kutsi is the only person that can upload the presentation.
Yeah.
Chairperson, if it's all right, then I will open up and share the screen, and then Albert can just carry on from there.
Okay, good. Then Albert will indicate, as to the transition when you should transition to the next slide. Okay, thank you. Okay, do that. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst we're uploading it, I think I can just start off. with just some generic comments. As HOD has indicated, in terms of the process that we follow, people report, and after they've reported, different directorates have reported, we do preliminary reporting. And that is based on information that is just reported by the directorates. And we have not validated.
Just a moment, Johan, that's a wrong presentation, eh?
Chair, let me
Chairperson,
just...
sorry, that's the presentation of the Department of Agriculture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is one up of the Department of Local Government.
Okay, well, while Johan is busy sorting that out, Albert, maybe you can continue and give us that contextual framework for the presentation.
Albert, just continue. The chairperson asked you to further contextualize.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you, Chair.
Yep. Please continue, Albert.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay. What I was just indicating is that we do the validation of the performance information because everything has to be based on evidence. And during that process, Chair, that's when we begin to align the numbers reported with the evidence that we have. And the numbers do change immediately once we've done validation. And what you have here, if I can indicate in terms of the dates that we have, the dates have been revised given the fact that we had a lockdown. DPME and the Provincial Treasury have revised the dates as follows. By the end, as HOD indicated, by the end of July, we're actually finalizing the draft annual report, which needs to be submitted then to the Auditor General. And between now and then, we'll actually be doing the validation. And in the process of validation, Chair, we start from the fourth quarter, and we go back to all the quarters, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4, just to make sure that the numbers are actually accurate. And what has been indicated, what you will see is that in the fourth quarter, some of the targets might have not been achieved, but then we indicate that some of those targets have been achieved in the previous quarters. And that is what you're going to see here. And as we go through the presentation, I'll indicate which ones have been done in that particular manner. If we go to the next slide, it's basically the outline. We can jump the outline and the purpose. Jump the purpose, the introduction. This is basically the summary, Chair, of those long pages. What has been submitted to you is the QPR 3, 2, 3, and 4 summary. And then we have a QPR narrative. And then we have a DLG model. Now that model is an Excel spreadsheet that indicates the achievement of the department from QPR1, Chair. And at some point, you'll find that you read those documents all together at the same time so that you are able to understand the performance of the department. Just to highlight, the performance of the department for the 2019-20 financial year, we had a total of 88 targets. I'm saying 88 because that includes the customized set of indicators, which is the national indicators. 8 being admin related, 66 line function, 14 are sector performance indicators. And in this report, I'll be mostly emphasizing on the 74 departmental indicators, but also whilst we're achieving that, we're basically achieving the sector performance indicators as well. The QPR2, Chair, if I may start in a quick summary, the QPR2, we had 32 indicators which were due for reporting. That's actually QPR2. And then we had 32 indicators that were due for reporting, and we achieved all those indicators. QPR3, we had about 31 indicators which were due for reporting, and 31 of those indicators we have achieved. So it's actually achievement of 100% on those particular quotas. Now, the next slide. For QPR4, which is the quota that we spoke, now talking about, Chairperson, in total, we were looking at about 66 indicators, which is basically taking into account all the indicators of the department that are mainly line function related. And out of those, we achieved about 92%. And if we look at the quick summaries, I'll refer members to a document, the QPR4 summary. If you have it, I'll just speak through it briefly. We achieved 61 of those. 2 were partially achieved. If I can, if you have the summary, you will look at page 3 at the bottom there. At the bottom, it says total, there's 74. And then it says number of planned performance targets for the quota in hand, which was 66. Number of targets achieved in Q4 is actually 62, Chairperson. And then those that the percentage is about 94%. Let me just briefly indicate which ones have not been. It's actually, we have achieved them, but the model requires that we do percentage. If you look at the DLG model that I've indicated to you, it actually gives us percentages in terms of achievement. We've got partial achievement, we've got full achievement, which is indicated in terms of percentages, which you'll see when you look at that DLG Excel spreadsheet. And municipal administration, governance and specialized support. If you look at the third quarter, you will see that they actually had a target of, they had a target of 3. Okay, I'm just quickly, okay. There's an indicator there, which is the assessment of code of conduct cases to ensure legislative compliance. That we will see in the presentation. There has been a partial achievement there, and it does not necessarily mean, Chair, that they have not achieved that particular indicator. They have achieved that indicator in the previous years. That you will see when you look at the QPR model. And the next one, under service delivery integration, there is an indicator which has been partially achieved. I'm still going to indicate those in the presentation, Chair. There's an indicator that has been partially achieved, which is number of services accessed through the TUSONG program. You will see that they had a target of about 1.3 million people accessing services in the TUSONG, through the TUSONG Center program, of which we achieved about 1.2 and just over 1.2, Chair. And the reason for that underachievement basically can be attributed to the fact that in the last month, which is March, we were unable, Chair, to actually get the reports from the centers relating to services accessed there. And I think the relevant Chief Director will then maybe further explain. But we know now as it is that the TUSONG service centers are mostly used as shelters. So that might be some of the challenges that we will actually experience there. And also indicator support initiative to improve access to government services. What you're going to see there, Chair, is that the target was 15, and we have indicated 11 in terms of the model. That was as our preliminary data that we've reported. But we have then since validated sort of all the figures, which is actually 15. And that will only be finalized. We're aiming to finalize the validation by mid-June, around the 19th of June or so. So that was achieved. Around disaster management and fire brigade services, you'll see there's an indicator there, which is municipalities supported to develop disaster risk reduction measures in their IDPs. That the target there, out of the 3, they've actually achieved 1. of which there's actually information that is coming through in terms of whether they have achieved it, so that we'll look under the validation process, Chair. That's a quick summary in terms of the highlight, in terms of what has not been achieved and what has been achieved. If you can move to the next slide. The next slide, the next slide, that's basically program 1, Chair. In terms of submitting the reports for reporting purposes, the development of the annual performance plans, and assessment of impact of certain programs. What we've conducted there, we've been actually following the hazard awareness programs of just a list of a period of 2 years that we've done. And the next slide speaks to program 2, which is municipal governance and specialized support. There, what we've done is to support municipalities with legislation development. That actually speaks to the bylaws that we've done for municipalities under the quota under review. The target was 2. We've actually achieved 3 of those. And what we've done is actually around Garden Route district municipalities, the health bylaws, Cedarburg, a bylaw relating to control of boats and boating in Glen William Dam. The next one, legal support provided to municipalities to strengthen governance. We've got a legislative constitutional task team, Chair, that we do on a regular basis. So that basically relates to that. And that constitutional task team is basically a number of experts that are put together, and we've got a particular theme that looks at legislation relating to municipalities and the sharing of best practices. Oversight that actually relates to, on a quarterly basis, Chair, the Directorate Municipal Governance monitors the functioning of municipal public accounts committees. And under the quota, they planned to do 3, and they have achieved those 3, and they've done it for Witzenberg, Theewaterskloof, and Swellendam. The next one, to exercise governance and accountability. They've actually conducted some training there, capacity building, municipalities that the relevant official can explain. Senior management appointments, we've actually done 5 of those. That most of that information, Chair, you'll get from the QPR narrative. That is the long document, the 64 pages. It gives all the details in terms of what was achieved. So for instance, it was a director municipal infrastructure, director infrastructure for Canaland, the CFO for Canaland, CFO for Back River, director technical services, Bergrivier, director engineering services for Langeberg, planning and development for George. So those are some of the things that have been achieved. If I can, I may go select certain, Chair, not to go through everything, because we actually also have it in the narrative. If I can select the next presentation, the next slide. Next slide. Oh, okay, okay. This one, Chair, speaks to sector performance indicators. That's actually speaking to compliance with municipal regulations. We've actually communicated with a number of municipalities where we issued circulars to municipalities. And if you look at the detail that is on page, in the QPR narrative, you'll find it on page, just quickly to page, we'll find it on page 12. Page 12 to page 13, that actually speaks to sector performance indicators, where we've actually communicated the upper limits, notice to all the municipalities. In terms of corruption measures, what we've done is we've done monitoring of anti-corruption, fraud and risk committees and fraud prevention plans in municipalities. That detail you'll find on page 12. The next slide. Okay, this now speaks to public participation. What we are doing in public participation. Okay, the support actions that we do to improve ward committees. We've actually done a number of municipalities where we've actually supported them with the client service charters, where we've designed and we printed those. That's about 4 municipalities which we've done under the court, in the court under review. That's Oudtshoorn, Laingsburg, Witzenberg, and Swellendam. The 2.2.2 relates to the reports that we do on a regular basis on the functionality of ward committees. Under communication, what we've done is we've actually done training with, for municipalities. One, we did an educational campaign on the roles and responsibilities that basically speaks to our civic education program. And then we've done training on writing for media, which we've done to about 14 municipalities. And that's basically specialized communication and training to municipalities. This indicator 2.2.5 support actions to improve citizen interface. Chair, under that particular program, there are a number of activities that we are running. One include the civic education and support program. That we actually, it's basically on public participation. It's citizen empowerment. We've done workshops in communities like Harlem, where we actually bring people into a hall and we have videos that we have, which actually indicate the roles and the responsibilities of the municipality, the roles and responsibilities of individuals as well. So it's basically aimed at people trying to, giving them an understanding of how can they actually influence or become part of municipal or governance activities within their municipalities. Under Community Development Worker Program, we also run sustainable development and educational programs. Those programs we've done in the Central Karoo, the Garden Route District, and the West Coast. Under the next, okay, if we can go to the next slide. Next slide. That indicates, that speaks to capacity development. The capacity development, Chair, we're speaking to your Back to Basics program. That's what we've been doing over the years, sort of consolidating our actions around the capacity development program. And then we've got training in municipalities. The training that we do for municipalities with a councillor training program. And also we've got an official training program that we do. And then the next one speaks to ICT. We also get into the, support municipalities with ICT related. For instance, municipal data governance framework, the municipal ICT forums, we support them with that. And we actually have supported them with the municipal IT audit support plan for the year under review. The next slide. Okay, those are sector performance indicators. The sector performance indicators I've already indicated to. For instance, the number 7, which is right at the beginning, it speaks to the basic support that we've actually provided to municipalities. The performance management systems, it relates to the support that we provide to municipalities around basically how to improve their performance. And the indicator number 9 speaks to support that we do to municipalities regarding local government municipal property rates. We have supported municipalities on that. We've got focus groups that on a regular basis, we meet and share best practices and assist municipalities where they need assistance. We also support them with the evaluation appeal boards as it is required by legislation. The next slide. Under performance monitoring and reporting, this is basically our monitoring when it comes to the performance of municipalities. There are a number of reports that we produce on a biannual basis. And also what we've done was actually basically provide a framework that is the research that we've done to actually enhance data management in the province. And that speaks to how we can actually support municipalities to be able to report and make sure that we've got centralized databases on municipal reporting. The next slide. This chair is what I spoke to earlier on, the number of services accessed through the TUSONG program. You'll see in terms of the target, it was 1.3, but we've achieved 1.2. This basically relates to the TUSONG program in terms of the support that we provide to the centers. It relates to our TUSONG outreach programs that we do in various communities. And also, in terms of that, Chair, you will see that we've achieved what we set to achieve, except around the number of services where we actually needed the numbers from the actual centers. The next slide. This chair is actually speaking to initiatives that are aimed at improving access to government services. There are a number of initiatives, Chair, that the department is actually providing, and that will be detailed on page 29 and from page 28, 29 and 30 of the report that we've provided. What you will see there is that we've got programs such as community outreaches that are done by all spheres of government, just to indicate. We've got mobilization that we do basically for people to attend the TUSONG program. We provide support and mobilize around indigent grant subsidies. It work around early child development centers. So it's actually a number of activities that we do there, including the nutritional centers that we do. And 6.2, it actually speaks to access to small scale economic opportunities that we do there. You'll find that there's opportunities for tourism. We support there around tourism development. The issues around small enterprise development, the community worker the community workers, they actually assist in that regard, community development workers. The next slide. Municipal infrastructure. The municipal infrastructure, they actually have a number of programs that they are doing there. The two, it speaks to electrical master plans that we provide to municipalities. And also we actually have done that for Knysna and Swellendam municipalities where we had their electrical master plans. Municipal infrastructure planning, what we have under that particular program is actually to assist municipalities in their planning. Under Matsikama, you'll see the detail on page 40 of the narrative, where from Matsikama we've done electrical master plan, we've completed that. Water services master plan, we've actually completed that for Laingsburg as well. So that's a range of municipal infrastructure support that we give as the department. If we can go to the next slide, it's still part of the program. Okay, we're getting to disaster management. Under disaster management, this is the work that we do around supporting municipalities with the development of their disaster preparedness plans. Not only municipalities, Chair, but we provide state-owned enterprises, we provide assistance to the provincial departments as well. So during the year under review, we've assisted municipalities like your Hasekwa, where we're actually going to have a plan tabled. I'm sure the plan has now been tabled in their meeting. We have had engagements with municipalities such as Drakenstein regarding disaster management planning in the province. So it's work that was completed around that particular area. And the reporting, I'm not going to touch into it, but that report is actually a consolidated report, Chair, 2.3 is a consolidated report around activities in the province that we've done around disaster management, and that is a requirement in terms of the Disaster Management Act. We also convene meetings, which is actually to ensure that there's better coordination of disaster management in the province. And around the assessments and verifications, we've actually done most of those visually, given the fact that we were not able to move to those particular areas to do assessments. So yes, we've done those assessments. The next slide. The next slide to speak to support that we do around, for instance, the projects that we've done is basically speaking to allocations that we do to drought funded projects. That's we actually do in terms of monitoring and see the performance around those particular droughts or disaster related plans. Municipalities supported, we support municipalities in terms of their assessments of risks. We normally update that report on a regular basis. We also do in terms of the data on a regular basis. It's an electronic database that is available, and we make that updated on a regular basis in the province. It's basically a, it's just a range of disaster or how to assess municipalities around disaster planning. The next slide. The work there is around area firefighting in the province. It's a support that we provide on a regular basis to municipalities. And we also do training around disaster management and emergencies in the province. One of those is the Incident Command Program, which we've completed. The fire and life safety programs we've done. That includes things like hazard awareness programs that we run in communities, mostly in schools. We've extended that. It was actually a pilot just to see, because it was for mainly primary schools, but now we're wanting to check whether it can be extended to high schools as well, where we have debates around that. The issues are around flood, fires, and drought related. And the functionality of the Disaster Management Center, basically on a regular basis, we have to make sure that our center is functional so that it is positioned to be supportive when it comes to disaster management, the declarations such as the COVID-19. The next page, next presentation. The next slide speaks to support relating to IDPs in the department. The one we were speaking about, the assessments of reports determining alignment and budget allocation. It's basically where we go into the area and where we check the alignment. And the target there is actually annually, which was 85%. And we've actually achieved 88% of that. Planning and alignment, the district municipalities alignment. Sorry, I'm just paralyzing. We've actually, I think the program manager will speak to this one, the 60%, which we've achieved 53% of that. Oh, sorry. The last one, Chair, it speaks to JPIs. If you'll recall, we had joint planning initiatives in the province over the previous 5 years. What we've done now in preparation of the new 5 years, because we were just finishing it off under the year under review, we've actually looked and assessed in terms of how aligned are the planning instruments of the provincial government in terms of what was agreed upon. And we've actually discovered that in terms of the report that we've produced is that 54%, there is a 54% of alignment, which in that regard, we've met that particular target. The others, Chair, is basically the support that we do to municipalities in terms of IDP assessments and so on. I think the next slide will be a thank you slide, just as my voice is going. Thank you very much, Chair. But as I've indicated, the DLG model, you will see our achievement over the years. But if you also look at QPR4 narrative, it gives you all the details that I was just speaking to right now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lengu. Over to you, HOD.
Let me close.
Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you. Could we, the HUD, Mr. Paulser, are you connected?
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks a lot for the presentation. I must add that I must thank you also for submitting that extensive document to us also, because it contextualizes and gives a detailed narrative of all the activities that have taken place over the 4 quarters within the department. It's a very informative document, and it tells a story of what has happened in the department over the course of the quarters. Thanks a lot for that. I appreciate it very much. So having said that, I'm going to open the floor to our members if they need to have any clarity on any of the quarters or whatever, and I'm sure you'll be able to respond to it. The documentation that you have stated speaks to it in itself, but certainly I want to create a space where members could feel free to engage in any aspect related to the performance of the department. So colleagues, I'm going to open the floor now. Feel free to ask whatever question you may have. I see is that the point of order, Honourable Maseko? Or is it the indication that you're going to speak? Okay.
Chair, is the indication that I'm going to speak.
Okay, great, fine. So I'm going to start with you, Honourable Maseko, and the other members who wish to make an input or ask questions for clarity, may they do so. But the Honourable Van der Westhuizen has indicated, and we'll start with Honourable Maseko. Member Smith and Honourable Moran as well. Thank you. In that order. Thanks a lot, colleagues. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair.
Please proceed, Honourable Maseko.
I'm sorry about it. 2.1.4 of the municipal governance and specialized support. If we can have that slide, there is the achieved amount of 24 on the targets. I'm trying to open it so that I can. But if you have a look at it and you add the numbers, it doesn't make sense. Can anyone just have a look at it?
Can you
Where
just
is
get it slide up, please, quickly? Jan?
Chair, which one is it? 2 point?
It's 2.1.4. It's on the municipal governance and the specialized support.
Okay.
I'm trying to, because the numbers there, I think at the end is 24. I'm trying to find out from myself if I can get that. But when you add, it didn't make sense to me. How did they end up with the 24? Where is it? Do you have it maybe?
Okay.
If they can have just answer, just for clarity on that one. That's number one. And number two, the public participation capacity that they were talking about, that they did in the halls for the communities to understand the roles of the municipalities, and Haarlem was indicated there. I just want to find out what criteria did they use to choose the municipalities, because the challenge of the public participation is, it seems it's across the board and in the whole country, let alone in Western Cape, that when we do public participations, we get few people that have an understanding that that's where the communities have to contribute for the government to take decisions. So I'm just interested to understand that what criteria did they use to get those municipalities that they chose, or what was the drive behind choosing those municipalities, and what was the outcome, so that maybe from our side as the members, we can learn one of the things that they implemented, that they saw that it was a positive outcome, or if it was a challenge, what did they identify as the challenge? I think that's all, Chair, for now.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Maseko. I think that slide hasn't been put up yet, but if, Mr. Bolzer, if without having to put up the slide, if you could speak to that question, I'll appreciate it very much.
Okay, thanks, Honourable Chairperson. I'm going to ask Kamal sits with us, and that, in my view, is an overachievement. So I'm going to ask Kamal to speak to the overachievement in terms of 2.1.4, and then I'm going to ask Nizuko to respond to the public participation, the meetings I had in the halls with communities, and what are some of the criteria that was selected municipalities, and what are some of the key challenges. Thank you. Come on.
Thanks a lot. So what we're going to do, I think, because we are not that many within this meeting speaking on behalf of members now, so we will respond to each and every question, so that, I mean, there's that immediate sort of clarity, and then I will allow the member who posed the question also to ask a follow-up question for clarity purposes if necessary, if he or she feels that the questions have not been fully sort of responded to. Thank you, Mr. Bolzer. And proceed.
Next person, I'm going to ask Kamal.
Thank you, Chair. Just to respond to the question pertaining to the overachievement, under the indicator number of municipalities supported with the initiatives, to enable them to exercise governance and accountability. If I can just give you a background, these are specialized, focused workshops and sessions that we provide to municipalities, which obviously supports and also guides them with regard to compliance and also adherence to the legislative prerequisites as well. The overachievement, although we planned for 6, the overachievement came as a result of the fact that we were invited by various platforms to conduct various sessions on legislative provisions as well as on clarity relating to the regulations. So the overachievement comes as a result of the fact that, I mean, you got municipalities, various municipalities attending those platforms, and then obviously it also it pushes the numbers up. So that would be the explanation there. The other thing I also need to say is it's a demand-driven indicator as well. So it's based on also demands and requests of municipalities, and hence the figure also having exceeded the annual target.
Okay, thank you.
Nozuka?
Chair, I also got a
Chair,
follow-up
can I get clarity?
Yes. Just hold on. I'll hold your horses. Honorable Maseko, you want to respond directly? Please go ahead.
Okay, Chair, I'm looking at that slide. So it's number of municipalities supported with initiatives to enable them to exercise governance and accountability. So the target is 6. And from there, at the preliminary annual outputs is 24. Now, what I'm trying to find out is, and I do understand that is per demand from the municipalities, but the business for service delivery is about governance and accountability. And the department, if they set the target of 6, what made them to set the target of 6? And what is it that made them to give the validation of the demand per the municipalities? They request those training or whatever initiative or support that the municipalities did need, because it's sort of, and I mean, there's a huge, on the second quarter, there was a huge demand that has happened in those municipalities. And what is it that was different? Because when you look at the last financial year, the demand was not that much as now it happened for 2019-2020. So I just need the validation to that demand. What was the driver to it to have that overachievement with the set target from 6? I mean, it's a huge percentage of overachievement.
Thank you, Honorable Maseko. Honorable Moran, is it specifically related to the same question you'd like to respond
Yes,
to?
yes,
Please,
Chair. I got a similar, but let me get into it now, Chair.
Yes, sure.
The issue that the Honorable Maseko is raising. I got a similar issue, Chair. If we look, for instance, at the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th quarter, Chair, and specifically under Program 3, Disaster Management in Fire Brigade Services.
Honorable Moran, will you just hold your question here quickly? I don't know if there's something with my computer, but I can't see the slide now. Okay, there we go. Yeah, you may proceed, Honorable Moran.
Yes, thanks, Chair. If you look, for instance, at the individual reports 4, 3, and 2. Now, one don't want to get the impression that targets has been set too low deliberately. We don't want to get to that conclusion. Now, if you look specifically to disaster management and fire brigade services, you will see, and I don't see quarter 1, it's only from 2, 3, and 4. So there might have been targets that's been achieved under quarter 1. Now, if you look, for instance, at Program 3, Disaster Management and Fire Brigade Services, the annual target is 18. Under the 2nd quarter, it's 5 achieved. Under the 3rd quarter, it's 7 achieved, it's 12. It's 12 out of 18 already, Chair. So it might be, if you, for instance, look at quarter 1, that the 18 has been achieved under those 3 quarters. And then, Chair, quarter 4, 15, target achieve 15. So it's also an overachievement. I want to understand, Chair, as we progress during the financial year, that's the target of 18. Is it cast in stone and it can't be changed or adjusted as we proceed during the year? Because at Q3, you've already seen that you've achieved all 18 targets. And then in the last quarter, another 15. Is the 18 cast in stone as like any other program? Or as we move forward during the year, can you then adjust downwards or upwards? Chair, I just want to understand. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Moran. Right, Mr. Bolsa, there's specific questions posed in relation to targets. Can somebody respond to it, please?
Okay. Chairperson, I'm first going to ask us Kimo to contextualize the 6 verses at 24.
Okay.
And how the target was set on the 6.
Sure. Okay. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just elaborate and to the answer and respond to the follow-up question relating to that and the setting of the target. The setting of the target, this is an indicator that we conduct, we implement every year. And the target that we set for 6 was to focus on the low capacitated municipalities, and then also taking into account trainings where we have conducted in the previous years at municipalities. Hence how we came to our target of 6. However, during the course of the year, you also had uncertainty regarding the legislation as well, pertaining to the Municipal Systems Act, as you would know. So that the figure would go up because we obviously had to go to various platforms and use these platforms to give clarity on the legislations. So that is the answer and response to why the figure is beyond the target itself, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. And in relation to Honorable Moran's question in terms of the flexibility of the targets,
Chairperson, I'm trying to look at the disaster management, and perhaps just the Honorable Chairperson, perhaps just a reference to where in disaster management, because I tried to follow.
Chair, can I assist?
Yes.
Yes, please, go ahead.
If we look at the individual reports, the individual quarterly reports, for instance, Q4 and its own, Q3 and Q2, you will see, for instance, Chair, under Program 3, Disaster Management and Fire Brigade Services, the annual target is 18. Then in Q2, you have, for instance, set yourself a target of 5. Q3, the same target, 18. You've set yourself a target of 7. You've achieved all 7. Q4, the target is 18. You've set yourself a target of 15. Achievement is 14. I'm not sure whether Mr. Paulser is with me now. If you look at the individual quarterly reports, starting from Q2 till Q4.
Okay. And the question, Honorable Moran,
the question, Chair, is the one that the Honorable Maseko touched on.
It's the overachievement.
The overachievement, Chair. And as I've said, I don't have in front of me Q1. So it might be that in Q1 there was also an achievement. Now, if you add the 3 quarters, 1, 2, and 3 together, you will already have overachieved or achieved the annual target. Then in Q4, you have set yourself, or you have already achieved the 18, you've set yourself another target of 15, of which you have achieved 14. That's an overachievement, Chair. What I want to understand, Chair, is that as we progress during the financial year, although we have set our target at 18, can we change it? Okay. Because at the end of Q3, there you have already achieved your 18.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. Mr. Paulser, I see you back.
Thanks. Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and thank you to the Honourable Member. I was just looking at the presentation, and I see now that the member is actually referring to the consolidated or the summary version of it. So, Chairperson, our approach is that when we begin to set targets, we normally look at the achievements over the last 3 years, and we get sort of an average over the last 3 years to say, so that it's in some way it's informed, that we don't say that the targets that we are setting is thumbsuck, or it's too low, or it's too high. So in general, our approach in the department is when we look at the targets for the year ahead, we go look and say about what have we achieved over the last 3 years and what is the average, and that sort of informs that to a certain extent. But obviously during the year, we find that there are circumstances that requires us to either underachieve or overachieve the targets and so on. And a portion of these targets are in actual fact demand driven. So particularly if you look at disaster management, it's also depends on certain disasters which we not can actually predict that's going to happen. So it's influenced by that kind of stuff. But we are not allowed, Chairperson, to review the targets during the course of the year. If we have set the targets and that has been accepted and tabled in Parliament, those are the targets that we are working with. And so if we can't achieve those or we overachieve that, then we must also provide the reasons as to why we are overachieving. So that is from that point of view around the target setting. The department, and I mean we in the department, had various discussions around how do we improve the target setting. But as I say, Chairperson, some of the targets are demand driven. Given the fact that we work in a local government environment and it's fluid, but the large majority of the targets we can also set reasonable good targets and improve the planning of the department. I am going to ask just on this for Albert just to come in, and Colin is also on the line, so that Colin, just in relation to the disaster management component, can indicate what were some of the overachievements in that regard, Chairperson. Albert?
Thank you, Mr. Paul, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the planning frameworks, as HOD has indicated, if we set a target at the beginning of the year, you cannot actually revise it during the year. The only thing that we do, you will also see in the annual report that we'll produce, you have to give reasons for deviation. Deviation is either you've overachieved or you have underachieved, and that is what you actually have to do. Just for clarity as well, Chair, perhaps I've just indicated the documentation that is submitted, but maybe how to read that documentation would be something else. If you look at the DLG model, the DLG model, it actually gives you performance of the department from the first quarter up until the last quarter. So you'll see all the 4 quarters there in terms of what was achieved. Now, the reason why I didn't include the first quarter in this particular presentation is because we have done a presentation of the first quarter, but what we can do then was to provide the summaries. Now, how you read the summaries, which I have provided, is you will see, for instance, on the 4th one that the member was asking about, you will see there's number of planned performance targets for the year, or performance indicators for the year. Number of planned performance targets for a particular quarter. So what that does, what it says is that, for instance, in disaster management, for the year, disaster management, they have about 18 targets that they must respond to. And they have actually achieved about 14 of those, if you see, which is a deviation that you will actually see there. And that you can also find on the QPR summary in terms of what were the reasons for that. I hope that it clarifies the reading of the documents. You don't read one document in isolation of the other.
Yeah, thanks, Albert.
I don't know if Colin, if you wish to come in, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, HOD and members. I think just an explanation of why we sometimes have numbers larger or the numbers exceed. and it's specifically on two places. The one is disaster declarations. So we obviously don't know what is going to happen in the year. We work off a number. We have tried in the past not to have any number on disaster declarations facilitated, because we don't know what is going to happen as far as disasters are concerned. However, as disasters happen and we get requested to facilitate a declaration, then we have to add it to the list. And as in this last year, for example, we needed to add more than what our actual target was. And as the HOD said, we do look at sort of trends, and then we look at a number. But a disaster, obviously, including the one that we're in now, is not anything that we could have foreseen a year ago, which means that we have to be very dynamic in the way that we do that. We also then get requested quite often, although we plan on assisting municipalities and SOEs and government agencies or government departments with disaster plans, we do, depending on what happens. So, for example, in the last year, we had quite a lot of issues with Eskom and with electricity emergencies, and then we get asked by municipalities to assist them in drawing up their plans. So although we try and work on a specific number, it is extremely difficult, specifically with the reason that we actually get asked. We also had issues, for example, with issues of attacks on foreign nationals, and these are the kind of things that we can't foresee. So we actually just have to add them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dana. I hope those explanations satisfy the members in terms of their questions. And maybe before we, Honorable Moran, I see you.
Yes,
yeah.
No,
Yes,
the answer is questioned by Mr. Paulse. Is answered by Mr. Paulse by saying
okay,
that
thanks.
if they said, but Chair, I just want to say that I don't read reports individually or in isolation. That's why I'm saying, for instance, if you look at all three reports, although in the last quarter there was an underachievement, 14 out of 15, but if you look at all the reports, 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's an overachievement. Your annual target is 18, and if you count all of them together, it's an overachievement, Chair. And that for that reason, I just want to say I don't read the reports in isolation. I've read all of them, and it's an overachievement. And the question was basically whether during the year the targets can be changed or not. But the answer is no, you can't. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Moran. That's my reading of your question as well. Thanks a lot. Point taken. Can I move on to Honorable van der Westhuizen, who has indicated his
Sorry,
Honorable Smith. Yes. Oh, Honorable Mr. Paulse.
Sorry, Chairperson, with your acquiescence, can we just answer the question on the criteria for the selection of municipalities in terms of the public participation?
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's the question of Honorable Seku. Correct. Thanks a lot.
Ask Nazuko.
Honorable Chair, honorable members, good morning.
Good morning.
So on the question of what criteria did we use to select the municipality? So let me first provide a context. So in the past 2 years, in the public participation team, we looked at civic education, and the focus was about how do we begin to educate and empower people in order to meaningfully participate during the various public participation processes. So in that process, about 2 years ago, we then developed a number of videos that range from what is the role of ward committees, what is the municipality, what is the responsive citizen, and what municipalities are doing and how they are structured, so that the citizens can then be able to engage municipalities on a range of issues in relation to public participation. Now, those particular videos we provided to all municipalities, and we also, when we tabled the annual report, the 2018-19 annual report, we also provided those videos to the standing committee. Now, what we then did, we took that further, because initially we had provided that to municipalities so that they can then play it during their public participation processes and when they engage with our people. We then, last year, as a chief directorate, looked at how do we take that work further as a department, not only as municipalities. And one of the areas we focused on was the indicator reflected to as support actions to improve citizen interface. And that is work that we've done as a department, working in conjunction with municipalities. We then looked at the format district management areas. And we looked at the plight of the people in those areas. And we asked ourselves, what is it that we can do, not only on public participation, but on various programs that the Chief Directorate does, especially around access to promoting access to services and government information. And we selected, and we indicated this in the last standing committee, we then identified some former district management areas. So we identified West Coast, and in the West Coast, we looked at Ward 8 that has Report, Pensacola, Stoffkraal, Pensacola rather, Stoffkraal, those areas in Ward 8. And then in the case of Garden Route, we identified Harlem, and in Central Karoo, we identified Maritzburg and Nelsport. And we then, because we have 4 directorates within the Chief Directorate, we then use that indicator to work in a consolidated manner in terms of the work that we do. So on public participation, their contribution is around civic education, which speaks to what Albert has then presented. And then on the two-song side, their contribution is two-song outreaches. And then on community development is around community dialogues and civic community dialogues rather. So what's the criteria then we used was we were working on a comprehensive program, and the contribution then from public participation was then to play those particular videos. So we did not only rely on municipalities, we then as a department went to the specific municipalities. In this case, in quarter 4, it was in Harlem and Uniondale. In the previous quarter, we had Report, where we then played those videos, and they are English, Xhosa, and Afrikaans, so obviously it would depend on the audience. And the reaction from people, the number of questions that are raised by the citizens, they vary, because people now have a better sense of how they will be able to participate and how to hold their municipalities much more accountable. So the outcome, and people when they left, they actually appreciated the ability to participate, as well as to better understand what is it that they can expect, for example, from their ward councillor, and how to better participate in public meetings in the affairs of local government. And some of that would then be people deciding to say, you know what, if my ward councillor does not provide, for instance, community feedback session, I have a right in the next local government election to choose somebody different. So the outcomes is a much more conscientized citizen who's then able to hold their municipality to account better. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Nozuka. Okay, thanks a lot. Can we move on to Honorable van der Westhuizen, and we can pose your questions now, and then we should wrap up with this session within the next 15 minutes, because we have other business to take care of as well. So, Honorable van der Westhuizen, you may pose your questions or whatever commentary you may have, you may do so now.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, my question relates to earlier comments by our members, and that is regarding the template that is being used to report on. And my questions are actually, I think, 3 questions. The first one is, to what extent have you followed the prescribed template for the inclusion of performance indicators in your reports? I've been told in the past that these performance indicators are often set by National Treasury and not even by the relevant national department. Because many of these indicators seem to what Mr. Paulse has now called demand-driven targets, and therefore outside the control of the department. It seems as if the department then needs to set the target relatively low because it's outside of their control in order not to seem if it's underperforming. Then my second question is there the possibility to include indicators that are more quality-based versus the current quantity-based indicators in future reports? And then thirdly, and I see there's another one that I've jotted down, what are the possibilities to set future targets that are less demand-based and more within the control of the department? And then lastly, I'm thinking of indicators that will indicate that the department responded, for example, within 7 days, or where they would be able to quantify in monetary terms the losses due to fires, etc. Because I know you've got no control about the number of fires or the number of municipalities asking you for support, etc., or the number of senior managers that need to be appointed in the province, which I think will also differ vastly from financial year linked to, for example, the elections of municipalities, etc. So to what extent can you change these indicators that you report on? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. Honourable Smith, are you still on the line?
I'm here, Chair. I just actually want to ask a quick question, and
yes, please.
Mine is not very. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Now, I just want to. There's a slide on municipal infrastructure that was shown. It's more general question. I just want to understand, man, what is also the criteria being used to give support to municipalities, because there is municipalities in the province that is much smaller than others. If you look at the population and the income, and if you even look at the future, the next 5 years, 10 years, there will not be a very big difference in terms of growth in the population and income of those municipalities. So I'm saying municipalities that are small now might remain small for the next 5, 10 years. So the question is, what is the approach of the department in giving support to those municipalities? What is the criteria being used? Because big municipalities will remain big in income and everything, and strong financially, and small ones will probably remain small. So is there not a targeted approach to the small municipalities? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Smith. Mr. Paulse, it's over to you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and members. I'm going to start this with the question around the target setting, and I'm going to also ask Albert just to come in there in relation to the template. I think, Chairperson, just the quantity versus the quality. So you will see that the reporting that we do is largely on the quantity. And then in terms of the quality, there is evaluations that we are doing on the APP on an annual basis. We select 1 or 2 areas where we've done work in the municipalities, and then we do an evaluation to determine what was the quality of that kind of intervention. If I can put it in brackets, not necessarily in the intervention in the terms of the 139, but what is the value that has been added in terms of the support and the assistance that we've given to municipalities and so on. So based on that evaluations, we will then either alter or tweak or change our approach for the following year, but that's in relation to the quality. So it's difficult to report on the quality of the interventions, and that is sort of a different process, but it's actually linked to the APP, where we do actually evaluations on an annual basis in terms of the work that we're doing. But the APP is largely quantity driven. Just in terms of future targets, The other thing that I also want to add, Honorable Chairperson and members, in this APP, there are also indicators from the national department, the national, in other words, the sector, the national sector. So there are national indicators in this, what we call national indicators, and we as a provincial department must actually incorporate that into our APPs and 5-year strategic plans, and then report on that. So it's not necessarily ourselves, but given that we operate within a sector and a broader scope, we then introduce that kind of indicators in our APP. Now, some of those indicators are also demand-driven, and the Auditor General on an annual basis actually audits that to see to what extent have the department included the sector indicators, in other words, the national indicators, and what was the performance in that. So we have limitation of movement if you want to either reword the indicator or change the indicator description, because it must be aligned to the national indicator description in that regard. Then I'm going to just ask, it's difficult, Chairperson, to, as far as possible, we go through a vigorous process on an annual basis before finalizing the APPs and so on. And the senior managers, together with me in the department, we review that to say, are the targets on track, particularly those demand-driven, and we are allowed to interrogate those targets until such time that we are comfortable to say that these will be the targets for the year. But as many of my colleagues have said before me, that it's very difficult because some of the indicators are demand-driven, notwithstanding that we try more or less a scientific process to get to a more accurate indicator in relation, particularly where it's demand-driven. Part of the indicators, Honourable Chairperson and members, will always be demand-driven, because that's the nature of the work that we are doing in municipalities. I'm going to ask Albertus to on the template.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the templates, these are the templates that have been prescribed by DPME. The only difference is that DPME, we actually do them electronically. It's online reporting that we do. And we then take that information and transfer it into the Excel spreadsheet that you see. So we are in compliance with that. Just in terms of the sector performance indicators, as HOD indicated, those sector indicators are actually set at national, where you actually invite different provinces. And of course, you will understand that there is different maturity levels based on different provinces. And those are some of the realities that we come across when it comes to that particular sector. Therefore, we cannot be uniform, but we are actually compelled that we must report on those particular indicators. But we do explain that in our APP in terms of what is it that we're going to do relating to that. Quality versus quantity. It's a long discussion, Chair, given the fact that everything that we have to do is got to be based on evidence. And quality, you realize over a particular period, and maybe in the first year, you might have not realized that. So those are some of the things that we're doing. But through the new planning frameworks that has been catered for, in terms of saying, when you set an indicator, you set it for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you, Mr. Paulser. I'm going to...
Can I just answer that question of Honourable Member Smith?
Okay, yes, please proceed, Mr. Paulser.
Okay, thanks, Honourable Chairperson and members. So we understand that there are smaller municipalities. I think there's a range of factors that we do consider when actually supporting municipalities. I'm going to particularly use the example of infrastructure. There is a due diligence process within the department. And municipalities we extend an invitation to all the municipalities in the province, regardless big or small, to say that, you know, we've got we have particular support initiatives in certain areas, and they are welcome in line with the APP and other stuff to submit business plans in relation for support, and particularly if it's around infrastructure. Marism also do extensive infrastructure growth plans, if I can use the example of the infrastructure, so to determine where are the pressures in terms of infrastructure in municipalities which require infrastructure related support. Over and above that, there's also the potential growth town study growth study that we have, and that is by the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning. So that gives you indication, given the growth in terms of the population, what would be the pressures on certain infrastructure like water and sanitation projects, your wastewater treatment plants, your water treatment plants, your refuge sites and so on, and your electricity capacity. So that would actually be helping those municipalities to help with the infrastructure development, so that the towns can actually accommodate the growth over the next 10 or 20 years and so on. So there's a due diligence process that we do follow, and we take that into account. And we also support the smaller municipalities. There is a view, however, and I say this, chairperson, is not the view of the department, but it is a view of that there's certain areas identified as social areas. So you actually keep those areas supportive, but there's not extensive economic growth in that areas. We are of a different view, and even we try as far as places like Beaufort West and Laingsburg and so on, try to stimulate the economy through infrastructure development and so on, even those smaller municipalities. We even go further, chairperson, in terms of infrastructure. These municipalities don't necessarily have the infrastructure capacity, your engineers, your project managers and so on. And then we deploy engineers and program managers to these municipalities to help with the infrastructure development in those areas. And that work is done in the department, and Marius Brandt does extensive work around the selection of and the appraisal of infrastructure projects and how do we support that in municipalities. I'm going to ask Marius to just conclude on that point, Chair, if you would like.
Okay, very briefly, Mr. Bolter.
Honourable Chair, I'm going to be very short because HOD basically gave all the answers. I can maybe just add that maybe in terms of master planning, and master planning is where you want to determine where new infrastructure and capacity must be built. That's mainly driven by, like HOD mentioned, where there's high growth. So if we find that there's a high growth municipality that has not done master planning in the past, and so we're looking at the age of when last master planning was done, obviously such a municipality is receiving a higher priority for master planning support. In terms of our drought, we do an extensive biannual drought assessment where we visit each municipality and we look at what's the risk to actually run out there. And then based on that, we identify or classify or categorize these municipalities into high risk, medium risk, and low risk. And then in terms of the high risk municipalities, we then look at what infrastructure needs would be required to actually make sure that these towns are not running out of water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnard. Thank you, Mr. Bolter. I think we have a final question from Honourable Maran here. Please, Honourable Maran, I recognize you.
Thanks, Chair. This will be my last on this presentation. Chair, if we go to the presentation, Disaster Management and Fire Services, 3.2.10, it speaks about maintenance of data respo security at Western Cape Disaster Management Center, Chair, right? Now, I'm not sure, Chair, and it shows a fourth quarter, the target it's 1 and achieved, it's 1. Preliminary quota output is 1, 100% achieved. Now, I'm not sure, Chair, whether I'm right to link it to the quarterly performance report, the one of 51 pages, page 44.
Mm-hmm.
Page 44, Chair, it speaks to the quarterly output target 1, and then there's the one. The projects attached to the following allocations as monitored, drought-funded projects, and then the first window. And there's also then a second window, Chair. City of Cape Town, 92% spending. And Matsikama, Chair, sorry, Matsikama, and I think the Honorable Smith have just spoken about Matsikama. Only 62.8% spending. And then there was then a request for a rollover, Chair, and that was basically declined. So, Chair, I'm not sure the quarterly target 1, quarterly output 1, Chair, whether it indicates that the target was achieved fully. The money that was supposed to be spent by municipalities and the oversight from the department, Chair. And if you look at Matsikama, only 62.8 spending, Chair. So I just want to link the two. We are saying we've achieved all, but in terms of the spending, we have only spent 62.8% when it comes to Matsikama, Chair. I just want to get clarity in terms of that one. So,
okay.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Honorable Moran.
It's on page 44. No?
I'm at a loss to comprehend how does the two link up with each other now, but I'm sure Mr. Paulson will be able to give us an explanation. Mr. Paulson?
Thank you, Chairperson. This is actually relates to the national grant funding in terms of the disasters. So I'm going to ask Colin just to reflect on the 62.8%. Colin?
Thank you, Chair. I think firstly they're not linked. The issue around the maintenance of the data repository is the risk data that we have. So the issue that's being discussed here is the disaster recovery programs, which are monitored and supported. So the issue is around that 62.8 rollover from Matsikama, and the reason that there was that it was declined is it was the second request for a rollover. So the first request for a rollover was approved. It was for drought projects, and the reason was that it was a second one, but the department provided the top-up funding for that. And the reason that there was delays was for equipment that needed to be imported in terms of what they required for their drought projects. And obviously there were issues and delays as far as that is concerned. So that's why we had that situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Honorable Moran, you have a final comment you would like to make? Given the response?
No, Chair. It's just, I'm not sure. In many cases, when I was, for instance, at the municipality, councillor, officials, for instance, wait till the last quarter to order some of these equipment, which made it impossible to arrive before the end of the financial year. I'm not saying it is the case, Chair. But in terms of planning, Chair, in most cases, that's the case. But my understanding now, Chair, is clear. It's basically equipment that was ordered from overseas. I'm not sure what time, and I'm not sure what role Corona have played in this particular issue, because I've seen in some of Corona got the blame. But I'm fine with the response. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Moran. Colleagues, that brings us to the end of the presentation. Allow me to thank Mr. Paulson and your management team. I know what you have provided us with is sometimes a summary of the activities that you're doing, but we know that beneath those numbers are a number of officials and expertise It has gone into the actual delivery and actualization of those sort of targets, and a lot of work has gone in on it as well. As you know, that the landscape in which we operate has changed. We have are forced to adapt into a new kind of environment. We don't know where it's going to lead us. We don't know how it's going to impact and influence the way in which you're going to do your work and deliver the kind of services to municipalities which you do. But we are hopeful and mindful of the innovation that you have within your department, and certainly you're able to adjust to the new environment with ease and deliver the kind of services that many of our municipalities, particularly in this new environment, is going to require from your department. Because many of our municipalities, they don't have the expertise, they don't have the skilled personnel to navigate themselves around this post-COVID-19 environment. They're going to be faced with lots of financial challenges. Financial sustainability will be key in terms of delivering services, and they will call upon you to guide them and to assist them in acquainting and acclimatizing themselves in this new environment. And all I can say from our perspective, the committee's perspective, we wish you strength. It's going to require a lot from yourself and your management team to make things work. And we are sort of fairly assured that you have the expertise and your team have the expertise to make things happen. And on that note, as we go forward, from my side, I'd like you also to present the committee with a quarterly sort of financial report in terms of the expenditure per quarter, and something that we can also have sort of a view in terms of how the finances are being expended in relation to the targets that is going to be achieved. And that is something that we can look forward to in the new reporting quarters. And from my side, to conclude, thank you, Mr. Paulsen, for your preparedness to be available and to give guidance. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the oversight. Thank you very much to the honourable members. Thank you.
Thank you. We will allow the department and its officials to exit, colleagues, and I'm going to give us a 5-minute break just to get yourselves a cup of tea or coffee, and don't log out. We will resume within the next 5 minutes, which is say 10 to 12, to conclude the other agenda items. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Maran. I see you.
Chair, I'm also here, Member Smith.
Honorable Smith, thank you. I see you. Honorable Van der Westhuizen, are you back? Honorable Maslodi, Maseko? Okay, but nonetheless, we'll proceed. We have a discussion on the public participation process to be followed in respect of the local municipal structures amendment bill. Colleagues, as you are aware, at our last meeting, we had a presentation from the National Department in terms of the amendments to the Municipal Structures Act, and yeah, largely. And we resolved at that meeting that our next phase in the process would be a public participation process. But given the extraordinary circumstances in which we find ourselves, we need to be innovative and decide on a process that is not going to expose the members and officials and members of the public to unnecessary risks, and also, process that is in compliance with the lockdown prescripts of the level under which we operate. And for that reason, we will not, at this stage, given the phase that we're in, have outgoing public participation processes, and largely focus on a process where the risk of contact with people have been reduced as far as possible. Having said that, should circumstances change, we will review our process and decide on how we can sort of expand on this particular process. May I also add that in terms of the NCAP process, they intend dealing with the bill in the third quarter, which should be towards the end of July, in August, and hopefully by then we could possibly conclude our process. But without further ado, the procedural officer have circulated to all of us a particular process, and maybe we can just, put it on the screen again, Johan, and then we could agree or not agree to the process that is being suggested. Johan, can you just put it on the screen again and then just take us through it quickly?
Okay, voorsitter, ek nou gedog ek het hom op hierso. Ek sal nou net moet gou kyk. Kan jy hom nie nou sien hier?
Nee, ek sien hom nog nie.
Nog nie. Jene.
Okay.
Voorsitter, laat ek net gou kyk.
Okay. Let's just go back to the communication that you send.
Chair.
Yes, I'm listening, Honorable Maran.
Chair, it's the two documents, ne? One is an advert, if I understand it correctly. Have your say?
Yes.
And then the other one is a draft letter to all mayors.
Mayors, yeah, that's correct.
Yes. So that's basically the two documents that we're going to deal with now.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Do we have it in front of me?
You have it in front of you.
Yes.
It was circulated to all members. But what we don't have is, Johan, just assist here quickly in
There we
terms
go.
of the media that we and the cost which
Chairperson.
yes, just
I think you can see the advert now.
okay. There we have the advert.
Okay.
And the letter that is to be sent, it's basically the same. And it's Honorable Seku, I see your hand.
No, I'm sorted, Chair. It's okay.
Okay, great. Okay, what we see now has been circulated, colleagues, is simply just the content of the advertisement that will go out to various sort of media outlets that we identified. And if you have any disagreements with the content thereof, we can change it, but that's basically the long and the short of it.
Chairperson.
Yes.
If I may just add, this is the advertisement that will be placed. We'll have it in the 3 official languages. I have requested quotations and for the placement in Die Burger, Cape Times, Die Son, The Voice, Courier in Beaufort West, Paul Post, George Herald, Ons Kontry, Vredendal, en Theewaterskloof Gazette in Culloden. And we received 2 quotations. One was for 51,300 and the other one was for 45,500. And the size of the advert is 16 by 3. Now, what will escalate the quotation slightly is that we might in certain newspapers place 2 adverts, an Afrikaans and an English one, or an English one and an isiXhosa one. But the newspapers are not cast in stone. These are the ones that we have used in the past because they covered all the various districts, and then the mainline newspapers. We could substitute the Voice maybe with the Fukani if members feels like that, but then it gives members an idea of more or less the cost and then the coverage that we will put it out.
Thank you, Anne. Do you want to tell me about the West Coast? Which media serve the West Coast?
That will be Ons Kontry, and that will be the Vredendal one, Ons Kontry.
Ons Kontry. Now, where does Ons Kontry? Is it Vredendal area? Where does
and surrounding areas, yeah.
And surrounding areas. Honorable Smith.
Yes, no, just on that question, Chair, I just wanted to, can we not include, Ons Kontry is covering mostly your Matsikama and Cederberg areas.
Okay.
Now, can we include perhaps the Westlander, which is covering the Saldanha side of the West Coast?
Yeah, no, I agree. Jan? Westlander, ne?
Maak so kennis, voorsitter, het hom.
Chairperson?
I'll get to you, Honorable Moran, and then Honorable Maseko.
Thank you very much.
The PAL post is more in your Drakensberg, Chair. You also got the Worcester Standard, and it gets distributed to your Langeberg and to your Witzenberg area, Brede Valley. If that can also be included. Thanks.
Jan, just take note of that. Thank you, Honorable Moran. Honorable Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'm just thinking that, the system of writing, it's an acceptable one. But the information for people to know when to submit, it can be challenging for those who cannot access the newspapers or those who cannot read but they've got their opinion. So if maybe you can, and I'll leave that to you as a chair to take a decision, that the media, those local radios, compare the prices with those local newspapers and check their accessibility when they compete with their numbers. Which accesses the Anti-Saras and Jacob, so that they can be able to maybe contribute. We have to do one way or another, change the modus operandi to give a voice to those communities that are left behind. That's what my take, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mashego. I don't know, we do have a WhatsApp service that we're going to sort of make available where people can leave voice messages. But I take your point that there may be community radio stations where you know, that's accessible to many people. And I think back in the Central Karoo, you have the Lughamka the community radio station. You have Eden in the other side in the Eden district. But we will look at costs. We also do not have unlimited financial resources, and we will largely be guided by broadening participation and balancing that with our financial resources that we have available. But thank you, colleagues, for that. Johan, one other thing that I have sort of missed out possibly is that the whole bitter area there, the George Herald doesn't cater for that bitter area. So there we may have the Plettenberg by Neisner newspaper there that comes from the same stable as the George Herald. Maybe we need to consider that as well. Honorable Moran, I see your hand.
Yeah, Chair, just on the issue that Honorable Mashego raised now, because we are dealing with two issues. The one is the advert, and I think the newspapers that we are speaking about, it refers to the advert that we want to put out there. And then there's a second one, which is a letter to all mayors, all municipalities basically, who will assist us in getting the messages to all those communities. Chair, and if I look, for instance, to all councillors, ward committee members, the wider public, then it seems there might even be public consultations or public meetings, Chair, with those who shows interest in this particular thing. So it will not stop only, Chair, to my understanding, with the adverts that's been going out, but there will also some actions for municipalities to assist in making sure that those who are interested in these amendments, when it comes to the legislation, that there will be communication or consultation with the different communities out there. Thanks.
Thank you for that clarity, Honorable Mashego.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, the issue of the communication to the municipalities is like I was highlighting, that we need to acknowledge that we are operating in a very difficult and different situations. So also the accessibility of the municipality for people to come to the municipality. I mean, people, they don't even go to the municipality to pay their accounts. They have to go to the banks. Now, there is a loss of information to reach the communities if we use them. Hence my saying that your Cape Times, your Cape Argus, yes, it's the newspapers, but not to reach them. Now the most working system is from the radios. When you talk about COVID-19, is the radios or the TVs. Now we have to think out of the box to say, all this that we are doing, can we leave it with you that please play around with the minus monies that you have to say, how do you access, what is it when you check your NISNA, which is the mode of communication that is working for them. what is working there, because I tend to believe the journalists also that are writing, they are on lockdown one way or another for the newspapers. So we don't want to go back to court to say that no, there was no any public participation. We need to say we did the research, the numbers of the Radio X was higher than the newspapers to reach communities. So we use that on this district municipality and this one on that. So let's play around. But
Okay.
the mayors now, also we can use them, but how are we going to use them when they are in lockdown?
Okay, thank you. Point taken, Honorable Maseko. So, Honorable Moranis, your hand is up. Is it you want to respond, or is it have you responded already? Thank you. Colleagues, yes, sir.
No, Chair, I'm not sure who pressed the button for my hand to be up.
Okay.
But Chair, mine is just that we need to deal with what's in front of us. The one is a draft advert. The other one is a draft letter. Should there be any changes, we should make the changes now and approve it for the administration to send it out, Chair.
Execute. Thank you. Honorable van der Westhuizen, I acknowledge you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, my comment is on the advert, if it's fine with you.
Yes, please. Yeah, for sure.
I was just wondering whether we shouldn't indicate that we prefer written submissions. I am concerned that we may have receive many voice recordings, which might be a bit difficult. You know, it's always easier to when you have something in writing to refer to it, to read it at your own time, and so on.
Thank you, Honorable van der Westhuizen. Yeah, given and I acknowledge what Honorable Moran is saying, given the extraordinary circumstances that we find ourselves in, and perhaps, Johan, it may not be feasible to solicit oral submissions from stakeholders and restrict ourselves to written submissions, and perhaps just to make it accessible. You know, I would be of the view that although in a previous committee there was a call for WhatsApp sort of inputs, none were received, but I think we should keep that facility available to people who may want to respond to the call for participation via WhatsApp. And I think it's an innovative way of soliciting sort of engagement with the people out there. But I think, Johan, colleagues, I think that we should minimize and reduce oral submission in the sense that we have open meetings where people will have make themselves heard through an oral submission. I think logistically it may prove very difficult for us to have something like that. Having said that, colleagues, any other comments on the content of the advertisements or the letter?
Chair, Member Smith.
Honorable Maseko.
Chair, I just want to find out from what you just said. So what are you saying, that we are going to say the oral and the written, or we are going to remove the oral?
We're going to, I propose that we remove the oral and just solicit written submissions.
Chair, with due respect, not everybody can express themselves the same. If we were not in these difficult circumstances, we would accept your Mr. Mbikwa to come and talk to us and not give us a paper. So let's not limit. Whoever who can talk, let them talk. Whoever can write, let them write. Okay, fine.
I'm open for that. But if we're going to solicit oral submission, the whoever is going to make such a submission must indicate as such, because then we will have to convene a special meeting and invite those participants to make their submissions so that we could facilitate that particular process. Yeah, no, okay, we could do that.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, Chair. I think
Yes.
maybe we are misunderstanding each other. We can get the oral through the WhatsApp, isn't it? So we can have that. We don't have to have like a formal and we sit and we convene. Just the WhatsApp, the oral, and then our procedural officer then can put it in writing.
Okay.
That's
fine.
what I thought you meant
Okay.
when you were saying oral.
Okay, no, fine. Okay, I agree with that. I don't have a problem with that. Honorable Moran?
No, Chair, thanks. I just want to understand, are we then saying that we remove verbal presentations?
That is something that I was referring to, is that we're
Because
not going to
if
have...
I understand Honorable Maseko correct, he's saying that verbal or oral submissions can be done through WhatsApp.
Yes, yeah.
Instead of us being called into a meeting and received an oral presentation from someone,
Yeah.
which I think won't be possible.
Okay. Anyway, colleagues, I hear you. Honorable Smith, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Chair. No, I just wanted to make sure that with all the amendments, the final draft or the final document of advert is finalized. Can that be sent to us as members so that we can also share that on our social media platforms in the groups that we are in? Thank you.
That's a very good idea, Honorable Smith, for sure.
I missed that part. What was the Honorable Smith saying?
Honorable Smith was saying is that once we have agreed to the advert and it's going to be placed, that we shared amongst members as well, so that we could also make it available on our platforms for people to engage with the content of the bills. So, colleagues,
just for clarification.
Yes.
Because it's marked draft.
Yes.
My understanding, unless we say no, it's not necessary. My understanding with it, Chair, is that we should approve the draft with whatever corrections that needs to be done in terms of this advert.
Yes.
Unless we are saying that it's coming back for final approval.
We're going to agree now whether we're going to, and my proposal would be is that if there are not serious disagreements with the content of the draft as we have it in front of us, that we agree to it, and we monitor the submissions that we get, because we have relative time in terms of dealing with this. We can adapt or supplement processes as we see the kind of responses we get from our stakeholders out there. So let us not limit the manner in which people can engage with us, but we keep it as broad as possible and see what we get from the people out there. And because this ad will also be on our website, and it will be available to a broad range of people. So that's my take at this stage. So let's keep it as it is. Let's not limit the manner in which people are going to engage with us, and monitor it and see what we get, and try to be as broad and as expansive as possible so that people can interact with us.
Chair, if that is your view, Chair,
yes,
then I will then propose, Chair,
yes,
that we adopt this draft as the adverts that should go out.
Thank you. Do you have a second for it?
Chairperson.
Okay, there's multiple seconders.
No.
Thank you.
No.
So,
Can I just
yes,
accept
but
the draft?
what about the session? Yeah.
Accept the draft, but just with the one amendment that we indicate that we prefer written submissions. We don't exclude the WhatsApp messages, but I feel strongly that it's just easier for us to summarize, etc., if we've got something in writing.
The WhatsApp messages will be transcribed, I suppose, and we will have something in writing. I don't think that the WhatsApp messages will be presented to us in an audio format. And I hear your point, but let's leave it up to the people that's going to engage with us. Johan, you want to say?
Chairperson, net vinnig gou kan die komitee dalk 'n besluit neem dat indien daar voice Chairperson, the committee maybe could take a decision to that if there are voice clips, that we refer them to Hansard and have them transcribed for members to consider.
Sure.
Also, the time limit of each voice clip. You don't want somebody to leave a message on the WhatsApp group and speak for half an hour. That could also be a concern.
Yeah, let's just see, and I don't think that we can be prescriptive in that sense. So voice clips, only 2-minute voice clips will be acceptable. Let's just see what we get.
Okay.
And then leave it to the transcribers to transcribe whatever voice. We may not get any. We may get 1 or 2, but let's just, provide an opportunity for people to engage with us in different sort of modes of communication tools. Yes, Honorable Smith.
If I understand the
yes,
Johan correctly, the advert as it is fine. But in terms of the information that we will receive, how are we then going to deal with it? For instance, if we received a voice note on WhatsApp and it's 5 minutes long, just to shorten it to the part that we really want in terms of that. But that's something outside of the advert. The advert should remain as it is, and I think there was a seconder for this one. How are we going to deal with the information that we received afterward? We can still deal with it.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you. Colleagues, yes, where am I now?
Sorry, Honorable Smith. Sorry, Chairman.
Honorable Smith, go for it.
No.
Proceed,
Okay.
Honorable Smith. Sorry
Thank
for
you.
that.
Chair, no, Chair, just on perhaps just on the voice note issue on the advert itself. I don't know if we should include the person must state his name, the area where he's from, and so on. That detail should be on the advert, because I see it's only saying interested persons can do so by sending a voice note on WhatsApp.
Okay.
You understand? Are you
Yeah,
with me, Chair?
Yeah. That's something different.
Shouldn't it include saying the person can do so by sending a voice note clearly stating his name, his surname, and the area he's from, and then make his comment or whatever?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot. Yeah, and that detail I need to, that.
Chairperson, that's the next sentence. Sort of captures that.
Must include the full contact details, name, email address if need be, and contact number. Okay.
Yeah, if you carry on reading, then it says the oral submission must include full contact details, name, email address, and contact number.
Okay,
and must, yeah.
Yes, please. Before I recognize you, Johan, Honorable Moran, I see Honorable Maseko and Honorable Van der Westhuizen. Your hands are up. You want to say something?
Chair, I think I'm covered. I was going to answer Member Smith that no,
Okay.
that is the. Can we agree in principle of the template
agree.
must
We
have the
agree.
contact? Can we
Okay,
vote
thanks,
for
Rod.
it? And so,
We agree
as a
there's no,
brief members.
there's no need for voting. We agree to it, and the necessary missing details in terms of telephone number, etc., will be completed. And between myself and the procedural officer, we will try to accommodate as broadly as possible the different media platforms where this ad will be sort of flighted and placed, and should there be a need for us to consult in terms of unavailability or inaccessibility of certain platforms, we'll get back to the members if that is the case. But can the meeting grant myself the authority with the procedural officer to set the process in motion, but keep the committee up to date as to what we're doing with regard to the placement of the ads? Okay.
Chair, you have our support.
Great, thanks. So,
Chair.
colleagues, yes, we are.
It's a letter now. The
finishing.
letter.
The letter.
Are we happy with the letter?
The letter is basically the same. Yeah. So we have gone through the letter. I'm sure. You'll agree with the content there. Is there anything else that needs to be added to the letter that's being sent to the mayors?
No, Chair, I want to propose.
Okay, make a proposal, Honourable Moran.
That we approve the content of the letter, and that the letter should go out to.
Sure, to the mayors and.
To the mayors, yes.
Thanks a lot. There's a proposal that the letters go out. Is there a seconder for it? Thank you. Support
Chair,
it.
I just want to. Can I just get clarity on this?
Yes, Honourable. Yes, Honourable Smith,
Chair,
please.
No, public participation at a local level, municipal level, is a function of the speaker. So I'm just wondering, is it correct to address this letter to the mayor and not rather to the speaker of council?
I think that the mayor can. Yeah, I think the mayor can refer for that.
Chairperson.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I've just prepared the one letter, and this is the one that will go to the mayors, but we'll have a similar letter that goes out to the municipal managers as well as to the speakers.
Okay. Thank you. Yes,
Chair.
sir.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
That's many letters, Chair.
Same content.
Same content. I was thinking what the Honourable Smith said. We can send this letter to both mayors and mayors/speakers. I mean, there's nothing.
Yes. Okay, yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yes, instead of writing more letters to the speakers, that's mayors/.
Yes, for sure.
I'm willing to amend.
Thank you.
Sure.
That concludes item number 2 on the agenda. Item number 3 is the consideration of the draft committee report, the minutes, and 2 other reports. Let's consider the first one, 3.1, the minutes of the 27th of November 1919, the 13th of March 2020, and the 5th of May 2023 sets of minutes. Those minutes have been circulated. Johan?
Ja, voorzitter, that has been. Just looking for it now.
Can you put it up on the platform quickly?
Chairperson, that's the minutes of 13
of March.
13 March. You want to adopt that one?
Okay. Can I have a proposal for the adoption of the minutes of the 13th of March?
I was absent in that meeting, Chair.
Okay. Those who were, Johan, just go up a little. Those who were present, Honourable
Chair, Honourable Maseko was there and is
proposing the
saying that we're proposing the approval,
Thank
Honorable
you.
Chair.
Is the proposer, can I have a seconder?
I agree too. I was just wondering whether Honorable Marans, you're not a full-time member. Your name should not be under apologies then.
That's correct, Chairperson. We would not necessarily then indicate to him as an apology.
Agree to then that we adopt the minutes as it is.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Jan, can we have the next set of minutes? Agree to?
Chairperson, minutes of 27 November.
Oh, that's a long time ago, eh?
That was towards the end, well, it was the last meeting of last year, Chair, yeah.
Okay. Can I have just number 2?
Can we go to the register a bit, Chair?
Register it yourself with the Honourable van der Westhuizen were present, Honourable Smith, and
myself was there.
Alternate member.
Yeah, I was not there, Chair. I've got an apology there.
Apology, Maseko, Chair. It is there.
Yes.
Van der Westhuizen proposed that we adopt.
Yes. Thank you. It's a proposal that we adopt the minutes of the 27th of November. Honourable Smith, second.
I second that, Chair.
Thank you. Could we move over to the next set of minutes, which is the 5th of May, 2020? Yeah. The last meeting we had. Okay, that was the last meeting with the National Portfolio Department of COCTA. Over to the second, Johan, second page.
Before we...
Yes, adopt.
3 is a quorum, ne?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, I'm just checking the numbers who were present, Chair. Yes, the chairperson, but Westhuizen and Smith. Yes.
Yeah. Is there proposal for adoption?
I propose.
It's a proposal. Honourable Smith, you second?
Let me second, Chair. I second.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Smith. And it's adopted. Can we move over to 3.3 or 3.2 quarterly report from October 29 to December and from January to March, and let's deal with that one as well as the annual report thereafter. Let's just look at the quarterly report. Johan, these reports have been circulated to members?
Is this correct, Voorzitter? Yeah.
So these are basically the report of the activities of the committee for the quarters from October to March 2020. Is there any adjustments that need to be made, colleagues, in terms of your meetings or whatever that you think that is not correctly sort of represented? The Honourable Maran?
Honourable Maseko.
Which one are we dealing with now, with October to December?
Yes, that's correct.
Chair, I just wanted to check with the Honourable Maseko, Chair, if we look at the attendance.
Yeah.
Then it seems he only attended one meeting.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand why the 17th and the 31st and the 27th of November, I was not there. Why do I have so many apologies, but I know I've been in the meetings?
Because you were sitting next to me every time, so I'm not sure if it's correct. If it's correct, my apologies.
I'm saying that if I do have apology, Member Maran must have apologies also.
Okay. What I see there is that we have alternate Honorable Mitchell. So, Johan, what's happening there?
Voorzitter, well, we've got the attendance register. Unfortunately, the files are now all in the office. I don't have the files with me, but Member Maseko was absent those two meetings, and Member Mitchell was the alternate member for her. If I can remember correctly, and I'm not sure if it was the period where she was a bit sick, and I remember that she did miss one of the meetings.
But can you double check, Johan, and if it is inaccurately represented here, can you do the necessary correction, please?
We'll do so, Chair.
Chair, I also see, Chair, if you look at Honorable Mitchell.
Yes.
You have attended all 4 of those meetings.
Yeah.
I can't remember whether it's indeed the case.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, I can't also recall that.
It's incorrect. I mean, you are the chair. You are the chair. You will know whether you have seen him in all those meetings.
For sure. I can't recall that I've seen him in all those meetings. So, yeah, similarly to that, please get back to me. So
Chair,
that
I will follow it up and have a look, but you must remember that Member Mitchell, at the meeting of the 1st of October, he was an additional member, because all the DA members were there. And then the next 3 meetings, he was an alternate for Member Maseko. So, but I will...
Let's just check the records and get back to me, and then we will do the necessary correction if need be. Okay. Thank you. Anything else, colleagues, that you think that's not accurately sort of depicted? Can we move that we accept the report with the necessary correction if need be? Any proposal that we accept the report, but with the necessary corrections that will follow?
I propose.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Smith proposed and seconded by Honorable van der Westhuizen. Let's move over to the next report from January till March. Okay, have a look there quickly. The report had been circulated to members. Further down, it's activities of the committee for the quarter. So the 2 activities, we had 2 meetings. There's no okay. Put it down. Okay, that's it, colleagues. Any proposal that we adopt the report?
I propose that we adopt, Chair.
Is there a proposal for Honorable Maseko? Is there a seconder?
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. It's agreed to. Then the next item on the agenda, Johan, it's 3.3, the annual report for the year 2019 and 2020. It's just a summary of all the quarters. So, thank you, Johan. Will you move on? The report has been circulated to members. Again, there will be a... Just go up a little higher, Johan. Okay. Right. Do we have a proposal that we accept the report as is? And
I propose.
It's a proposal by Honorable van der Westhuizen. Is a seconder?
I second.
Thank you. There's a seconder. Thank you, Honourable Maseku. 3.4, adoption of draft report of the Standing Committee on Local Government on its oversight visit to Westridge Gardens and the Lentegee Public Transport interchange. As members can recall, the committee on the 18th of February undertook 2 oversight visits in Mitchells Plain. Members present were myself and Honourable Maseku, Honourable van der Westhuizen. We're the only members that were present, and we receive apologies from Honourable Boycha and Honourable Smith. So this is basically just a summary of the visits to that particular sites. The report had been circulated to members. I take it that we have gone through the report. Is there anything that should be added or should be removed from the report? If not, can I have a proposal that we accept the report?
I support, Chair.
Is a proposal that we accept the report? Can I have a seconder for that?
Seconded, Van der Westhuizen.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Van der Westhuizen. Report accepted. And then lastly, colleagues, 3.5, it's a proposed committee program. Honourable Smith, Honourable Mr. Kutsi, can you put the program onto the screen? As far as the program is concerned, colleagues, Johan, is you daar? Kan jy my hoor? Can you hear me, Johan?
Yeah, Chair, I just want to see if I can find him quickly. Sorry.
Okay. Alex, as you know, this committee meets every second week. And due to lockdown, it may not meet as regularly as it is envisaged. But in keeping with our sort of oversight function, we will try to meet as the need arises. So as soon as I get the program up, and then it is
Can you see, Voorzitter?
Yeah, yes, it's not there, nothing, I can't see anything.
Oh,
okay. As and the program was circulated to our members, eh?
That's correct, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me try quickly again.
Okay, please do so. Yeah.
Chair, that's the only document, Chair, that I could not find.
Yeah, no, I don't think that I haven't received the program either.
I have not. I have looked even this morning, Chair, through my emails. I could not find it.
Yeah, I haven't received the program either. That's why I was looking for it myself.
Chair, can I make a suggestion? Because I also haven't seen it that it gets resent to us and we respond online with it in support.
Great. Thanks a lot. None of us received the program yet, Yandi. Please send it on to the members, and whatever additions we need to add, we can, respond to it, and then we can circulate the final provisional program, and then we can adopt it.
Okay.
Lastly, thank you. Lastly, colleagues, is any resolutions for the committee for today? That is point 3.5, 3.4. Any resolutions?
None from my side, sir.
Yes, Chair. Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Chair, for the resolutions, I don't know how to put it. Maybe Johan can help me. But I'm just concerned about the high percentage of the achievement. Looking at, I didn't want us to have a too much dialogue about the one that I was raising, that one, because the explanation of the legislation, it didn't make sense from the official as was, because when you look at the narrative of their fourth quarterly report, it was talking about the councillors' capacity. It was not about the legislation. So we need to really say that we get the real QPR indicators, correct one, or the APP should reflect what's going to happen, because in my mind, I'm thinking that there's been the elections, it was going to be more training. They should have put the target high because they knew they're going to do the training and it will make sense. But to put 6 and overachieve with more than 3,000% or with 300%, it doesn't make sense. That why is that happening? So we need to have an engagement with the department to give us in different programs, how do they set up their targets? What are the drivers for their targets? And is there a moving target on which indicators, and they're stable on which indicators, on which programs? So I don't know how to put it, but we have to get an indication of how do they come up with the numbers for their programs, their targets, something to that effect, so that we don't see the overachievement, but in service delivery, you cannot pinpoint to where is that overachievement.
Thank you, Honorable Mseko. Honorable Maran.
Chair, thanks. Chair, correct me if I'm wrong. We have now dealt with the advert. We have now dealt with the letter that should go to mayors and speakers. But should there be a resolution, Chair, that the advert should go out? Should there be a resolution that the letter should go out? I'm just asking.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this should. We should resolve that. We will send out or place those necessary letters. We should encapsulate it in the form of a resolution. Yes, we have agreed to the content.
But I think, Chair, Johan will know exactly how to formulate that resolution. All that we are saying that we have resolved.
The should proceed with the public participation process.
Yes, and that letters to the mayors and speakers should go out, and that the adverts should also go out to the different newspapers.
Thank you, Honorable Moran. From our side, part of the narrative that you provided us with the 54-page document, somewhere along the line, they have stated that the department made a submission to the National Portfolio Committee of COGTA in terms of its comments with regard to the Municipal Structures Act. We should get, they made a presentation to the Portfolio Committee. We should get that sort of presentation that they made to the Portfolio Committee, their comments. We should get a copy of that so that we could be appraised with the department's view with regard to the amendments that we are going to consider under in our final sort of response to the amendments. Of Johanna, are you with me?
Chairperson, that's correct. I would prepare a letter to the HOD and to the Minister as well, asking them for written comments on the bill. So we will obtain those comments. Yes.
Yes. Any other final resolutions, colleagues? If none, thank you for your patience. We've run over time a little. It was a long meeting. Lots to consider and to deliberate on. I thank you for your sort of participation and sort of thorough engagement in the content that was presented to us. Well done. And to Siraj and his team for the support in the background. Appreciate it very much. We never had any technical glitches, and that is the work that's gone on behind the scenes. And to Jan and all the other people, thanks a lot, colleagues. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see each other on Thursday. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Chair.